It's worth getting into here about some of the choices in the transition team. We talked yesterday about the possibility of a new government agency called the Office of, I think, Government Efficiency, which sounds like an oxymoron to me, government efficiency. But Elon Musk may be asked to head that up. And it's funny how everybody loved Elon Musk until they didn't, until half the country didn't like his politics, and then he's the worst person that's ever lived. It's hard to argue with his genius. Now, whether or not he is able, or anybody would be able, to find and get rid of inefficiency, redundancy, and waste in the government remains to be seen. I think, in my opinion, it is a part of the machine itself. It comes with redundancy, waste, and inefficiency, which is why I'm a small government person. I'm not an anti-government person. But I think governments by nature, bureaucracies by nature, have redundancy and waste in them. Can we reduce it? Can we limit it? Possibly. We know that Senator Marco Rubio is being considered to be the Secretary of State. So what will the cabinet members, the nominees, be? What will they look like? Well, we know that the chief of staff is going to be Susie Wiles, and that is absolutely historic. Here is Christine Cordero, ABC News, talking about how she will make history.
She is known inside the campaign as somebody who is in the background, is quiet during meetings, doesn't raise her voice, really attempts to facilitate all of the right people being around the president-elect. So that's essentially what she's known for, and she's honestly going to be the best or the first woman White House chief of staff.
That's historic. I think that's fantastic. The problem is, and I think for her it's a problem, but not for anybody else, and I'm sad for her in this regard, is that there is this absolute disdain for Donald Trump in many, many circles of people. They just don't like him. They're never going to acknowledge good things that he does. And that's unfair to him, but I'm not defending him. But she is a legitimately good hire. She is an excellent choice. She's worthy of the job. She's qualified for the job. And she is a trailblazer. Like any other trailblazer should be recognized when it comes to breaking this glass ceiling. She is doing it. Will she be given credit for it? Because giving her credit for this job and being a trailblazer means you have to acknowledge it was Trump that hired her. But if you are going to say he only hired her because she's a woman, and that is demeaning. And when it happens on the other side, it is demeaning, and they call it out for being demeaning. This is who Susie Wiles is.
Wiles, the daughter of NFL player and sportscaster Pat Summerall, has been a powerful GOP advisor for years, credited with helping getting Florida Republicans like Senator Rick Scott and Governor Ron DeSantis elected in 2018. DeSantis fired her, and she would later go on to lead Trump's campaign to defeat him in the primary. Wiles is known for running a tight ship, staying out of the spotlight, striking a balance of letting Trump be Trump, but steering the campaign back to focus on the issues: economy, inflation, and immigration.
So giving her the job, but as people that are close to this are saying, that she had some conditions, and those conditions were conditions of power and control, that she was going to have a say, that she was not going to be a rubber stamp, that she was going to be given the power to make choices. I think that's important. I think that's an important thing for her to be able to do, and for him to acquiesce to it. So as we talked about some of the other cabinet positions, this is an ABC News report on what some of those names are.
Sources say Congresswoman Elise Stefanik is the leading candidate for ambassador to the United Nations. She's called for readdressing U.S. funds for the UN. Other names floated for cabinet positions include Marco Rubio, potentially for Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo for Secretary of Defense, and Mike Lee, potentially for Attorney General.
I'll tell you, it's funny. I guess people have differing opinions about them based on their politics. I had the privilege once of having dinner with Mike Lee. I was at an event in Washington, D.C. I had flown to D.C. with Glenn Beck, and Glenn and Mike Lee are friends. And so they had dinner together in a hotel room, and they invited me to join them for dinner. And I love to talk. You know, if you listen to the show, I'm pretty nonstop with talking. I don't know that I said 3 words all night. I sat back and just listened. two brilliant minds. Whether you agree with their politics or you disagree with their politics or opinions, that's on you. But you have to acknowledge brilliance when you see it. I don't know that there is another person in the United States that understands the Constitution better than Mike Lee. Now, you may not agree with his decisions as a politician. You may not like him as a Republican politician. But Mike Lee, by the way, I believe he was born in Arizona. But Mike Lee is a brilliant man. And so having his name thrown out there for Attorney General, and I'll tell you another thing that I believe about him after spending an evening with him. I know he's a man, or I would say I believe he's a man of character. What I mean by that is I don't think he would be coerced into doing something, because the concern is that Trump's going to weaponize the DOJ and go after his enemies. If Mike Lee were chosen, I don't believe Mike Lee would do that. I know there are some people out there that believe he would. I'm just telling you, I don't know him. I can't call him a friend. I met him. I had dinner with him. I listened to him years ago, years before this was even a consideration. I heard him talking about the Constitution and the importance of it and the rule of law. And I just listened in amazement as they talked all night long about the Constitution. And I just believe him to be a brilliant guy. So listening to these names being thrown around, I love the names that I'm hearing just for who some of these people are. I think Marco Rubio would be an amazing Secretary of State. His story is incredible. When Marco Rubio was giving a stump speech, as a matter of fact, the nomination, when Trump was running for his second term, when he lost to Joe Biden, being at that convention, when I was at the first one in 2016, listening to him speak, he had a line in his speech that he used to give. They all have stump speeches, and they give a line, and I've said this before, maybe you've heard me say it, but I was moved by it because his parents are Cuban immigrants. And Marco Rubio said, my father was a bartender, and he stood behind a bar at the back of the room so that one day I could stand up here at the front of the room. And I thought, that is the American immigration story in one sentence. One sentence. He exemplified the great American immigration stories that should be told. I thought it was incredible. I thought it was terrific. I think he'd be an excellent choice as well to be somewhere in the cabinet. And there's a lot more names that are being thrown around. But it is incredible to see what's happening. Will America truly, after the words of the president and the vice president talking about the transition, and we fight the battles and we don't give up, but, peaceful transfer of power, will we see that? Will we see an opportunity given to the president-elect, the president of the United States, to build his team and to implement his agenda and give him an opportunity to succeed? Or is this going to be no way, no how are we ever going to pay a compliment to this guy?
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Catch up on Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast, and click the button in the middle to subscribe.